Priya Sharma stepped out of her rental car and breathed in the crisp Scottish Highland air. The stone cottage before her looked like something from a fairy tale. Covered in climbing ivy with smoke curling from its chimney, it promised exactly what she needed. 4 weeks of complete solitude to finish her biggest interior design project yet. After 8 months of difficult clients, impossible deadlines, and one particularly painful breakup, she deserved this escape. The Robertson Hotel chain had hired her to redesign their flagship property in Edinburgh. This project would establish her as one of the top designers in Britain. She just needed peace and quiet to make it perfect. The sound that changed everything. Priya grabbed her bags and walked toward the heavy wooden door. The cottage sat at the end of a winding road, surrounded by rolling hills already dusted with early winter snow. No neighbors for miles. No distractions. Just her designs, and endless cups of tea. She pushed open the door and froze. Music filled the cottage. Classical piano drifted from somewhere inside, mixed with the sound of typing. Someone was already here. Someone who was not supposed to be here at all. Priya dropped her bags with a loud thump. Her heart raced as she moved through the small entrance hall toward the main living area. The cottage was warm, a fire already crackling in the stone fireplace. And sitting at the antique desk by the window, completely absorbed in his laptop, was the last person on earth she wanted to see. An enemy from the past. Daniel Blackwood looked up slowly, his dark eyes meeting hers with clear surprise. Then that smile appeared. That arrogant, infuriating smile that had haunted her since their disastrous encounter at the London Design Awards 6 months ago. Well, he said, leaning back in his chair. The famous Priya Sharma. Did you follow me here? Priya felt heat rush to her face. Follow you? I booked this cottage 3 months ago. What are you doing in my retreat? Daniel stood, and Priya was reminded again how tall he was. Over 6 feet of expensive clothes and unearned confidence. His dark hair was slightly messy, softer than his usual polished look. But that smirk was exactly the same. Your retreat? He picked up a folder from the desk and waved it at her. I have confirmation emails going back 4 months. This cottage is mine for the next month. The battle begins. Priya marched forward and snatched the papers from his hand. Her eyes scanned the booking confirmation, and her stomach dropped. Everything looked legitimate. The dates matched exactly with her own reservation. This is impossible, she muttered. The rental company made a mistake. Clearly. Daniel crossed his arms over his chest. And since I arrived first, I suggest you find somewhere else to stay. Priya laughed, but there was no humor in it. Find somewhere else? There is nothing else for 30 miles. And in case you haven't noticed, it started snowing. I'm not driving back down that mountain road in the dark. She moved to the window and her heart sank further. What had been light flurries when she arrived had become thick, heavy snowfall. The hills were disappearing behind a curtain of white. Memories of their first meeting. Daniel joined her at the window, standing close enough that she caught a hint of his cologne. Cedar and something spicy. She hated that she noticed. You know, he said quietly, I never did apologize for what happened at the awards ceremony. Priya stiffened. 6 months ago, Daniel had loudly criticized her winning design in front of a room full of industry professionals. He had called it pretty but impractical and suggested the judges had chosen style over substance. The memory still burned. You humiliated me in front of everyone I respect, she said without looking at him. I was having a terrible night. My company had just lost a major deal because of my own mistake. I took it out on you, and that was wrong. Priya turned to face him, searching his eyes for signs of mockery. She found none. For a moment, Daniel Blackwood actually looked sincere. An uneasy truce. Fine, she said finally. We're both stuck here tonight. Tomorrow I'll call the rental company and sort this out. Until then, we stay out of each other's way. Daniel nodded slowly. There are 2 bedrooms upstairs. Take whichever one you want. I'll stay down here. Priya grabbed her bags and headed for the narrow staircase. Halfway up, she paused and looked back. Daniel had returned to his laptop, but he was staring at the screen without typing. His shoulders seemed tense, tired. She shook off the flicker of sympathy. This was the same man who had tried to destroy her reputation. One almost apology did not change anything. Her bedroom was small but charming, with a brass bed frame and thick quilts in shades of blue. The window looked out over the hills, now almost invisible behind the falling snow. Priya unpacked quickly and tried to focus on her design plans, but concentration proved impossible. A long night ahead. Downstairs, she could hear Daniel moving around. The smell of cooking drifted up through the floorboards. Her stomach growled traitorously. She had not eaten since breakfast. A knock came at her door. "I made dinner," Daniel called through the wood. "Pasta with whatever vegetables I found. There's enough for 2 if you're hungry." Priya wanted to refuse. She wanted to stay in her room and prove she needed nothing from him. But practicality won over pride. They were going to be stuck together, at least for tonight. Starting a war would only make things worse. She opened the door. Daniel stood in the hallway holding a glass of wine, which he offered to her. "Peace offering," he said. That smile was back, but softer this time. Almost uncertain. Priya took the glass. "Temporary ceasefire. Don't push your luck." She followed him downstairs, telling herself this changed nothing. Tomorrow the roads would clear, the rental company would fix their mistake, and she would never have to see Daniel Blackwood again. She had no idea how wrong she was. Priya woke to absolute silence. No cars, no city noise, nothing but the soft whisper of wind against the window. She pulled back the curtain and gasped. Snow had buried the world. The rental car was just a white lump in what used to be the driveway. The hills had vanished entirely, replaced by an endless sea of white that seemed to glow in the pale morning light. Drifts piled against the cottage walls reached halfway up the ground floor windows. She grabbed her phone and found what she had feared. No signal. The storm had knocked out the cell tower. Facing reality together. Priya rushed downstairs to find Daniel already awake, standing at the front door with a grim expression. He had tried to open it, but snow blocked it completely. "The back door is the same," he said without turning around. "We're completely snowed in." "For how long?" Daniel finally looked at her. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, suggesting he had not slept well. "The weather report last night said the storm would last 3 days. After that, it could take another day or 2 before anyone can reach us." 5 days. Maybe more. Trapped in this tiny cottage with the most infuriating man she had ever met. "The good news," Daniel continued, "is that whoever owns this place keeps it well stocked. There's enough food for 2 weeks, plenty of firewood, and the cottage has its own well for water." Learning to share space. The first day passed slowly. They divided the cottage into territories. Priya claimed the dining table for her design work, spreading out blueprints and fabric samples. Daniel kept to the desk by the window, conducting whatever business he could manage without internet. They moved around each other carefully, like 2 cats sharing a small room. Polite but distant. Neither willing to break the fragile peace. But small moments kept catching Priya off guard. The way Daniel made coffee each morning and left a cup outside her door without being asked. How he noticed when she shivered and added another log to the fire without comment. The soft sound of his laughter when he read something amusing on his laptop. Cracks in the armor. On the second evening, the power went out. The cottage plunged into darkness, lit only by the dying fire. Priya was in the kitchen when it happened, and she stumbled into the counter with a sharp cry. Daniel appeared with a flashlight seconds later. "Are you okay?" "Fine," she said, rubbing her hip. "Just surprised." He guided her to the living room, where they worked together to build up the fire. The flames cast dancing shadows across his face, softening his sharp features. Without the glow of computer screens and the armor of business calls, he seemed almost human. "Why did you really come here?" Priya asked suddenly. "You run a technology company worth millions. Why hide in a cottage in the middle of nowhere?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment, feeding small sticks into the growing flames. "Because I was burning out," he admitted. 18-hour days, 7 days a week, for 5 years straight. I started having panic attacks. My doctor said take a break or have a heart attack. I chose the break. Secrets in the firelight. Priya stared at him. This was not the arrogant, untouchable Daniel Blackwood she thought she knew. This was someone exhausted and scared, hiding his struggles behind expensive suits and a confident. "I had no idea," she said softly. "Nobody does. Image is everything in business. Show weakness and the sharks start circling." He looked at her, firelight reflecting in his dark eyes. "Why are you really here, Priya?" She could have given him the easy answer about her design project. Instead, something about the darkness and the snow and his unexpected honesty pulled the truth from her. "I was engaged," she said. "Until 3 months ago. He decided my career mattered more to me than he did. Maybe he was right. That doesn't sound like the whole story." "It's not." Priya pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "He cheated. With my business partner. I lost my relationship and my company in the same week. Finding common ground." Daniel let out a low whistle. "And I thought my year was bad." A surprised laugh escaped her. "It's not a competition. If it was, you would definitely be winning." He smiled, genuine and warm, and something shifted in Priya's chest. They talked until the fire burned low, sharing stories and failures and dreams. Daniel told her about growing up poor, about working 3 jobs through university, about the fear that still drove him to succeed at any cost. Priya told him about her immigrant parents who sacrificed everything so she could pursue her passion, about the pressure to prove their sacrifice was worth it. A different kind of warmth. Around midnight, the temperature dropped sharply. Even with the fire, the cottage grew cold. They could see their breath in the air. "We should sleep down here tonight," Daniel said. "Stay close to the fire." They dragged mattresses downstairs and created a nest of blankets near the hearth. It should have been awkward, sleeping feet apart from a man she supposedly hated. Instead, it felt safe. Normal. "Right. Daniel?" Priya whispered into the darkness. "Yes? I'm sorry too. For judging you so harshly. For holding on to anger for 6 months instead of giving you a chance to explain." She heard him shift in his blankets. "We both made assumptions. Maybe this storm is the universe's way of forcing us to actually see each other. Maybe." Priya smiled in the darkness. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Priya." Outside, the wind howled and the snow continued to fall. But inside the cottage, something new and fragile had begun to grow. Something neither of them had expected to find. Priya woke to warmth she had not expected. Sometime during the night, she had shifted closer to Daniel. Her back pressed against his chest, and his arm draped loosely over her waist. She should move. She should create distance immediately. She did not move. His breathing was slow and steady, still deep in sleep. She let herself have this moment, this unexpected comfort. When was the last time someone had held her? Not since her engagement ended. Maybe longer, if she was honest. Her former fiancé had not been the tender type. Small acts of care. Daniel stirred, and Priya quickly closed her eyes, pretending to be asleep. She felt him realize their position. Felt him freeze. Then, instead of pulling away, he gently pulled the blanket higher over her shoulder before slowly extracting himself. She listened to him move quietly around the cottage, starting a new fire, boiling water for coffee. Such simple domestic sounds, but they made her heart ache with longing for something she had convinced herself she did not need. When she finally woke up and came to join him, Daniel handed her a cup of coffee made exactly how she liked it. He had been paying attention. "Storm's slowing down," he said, nodding toward the window. The snow had stopped falling, though the world outside remained buried in white. The project that connected them. That morning, Priya returned to her design work. But instead of ignoring her, Daniel pulled a chair close and asked questions. Real questions. What inspired her choices? How did she balance beauty and function? What would she change if budget was not a concern? She found herself opening up about her vision in ways she never had with clients. Daniel listened with genuine interest, offering occasional insights from his business perspective that actually helped rather than frustrated her. "You know what your designs need," he said after studying her hotel plans for nearly an hour. Priya braced for criticism. "What?" "Technology integration that doesn't feel technological. Invisible convenience. I could help with that, if you want." Unexpected partnership. They spent the next 2 days working together. Daniel connected her with his company's smart home division. They sketched out ideas for lighting that responded to guest moods, climate control that anticipated needs before guests noticed them, entertainment systems that hid completely when not. The Robertson Hotel project transformed from excellent to revolutionary. And through the process, Priya discovered that Daniel's business mind complemented her creative vision perfectly. They argued and debated and pushed each other, but it was productive friction. The kind that created sparks instead of destruction. The moment everything changed. On the fourth evening, Priya stood at the window watching the sunset paint the snow in shades of pink and gold. Daniel joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "The roads might be clear tomorrow," he said quietly. "Someone from the village will probably come check on the cottage." Priya's chest tightened at the thought of leaving. Of returning to separate lives in London where they would have no reason to see each other. Where this strange, beautiful connection would fade into memory. "Daniel," she started, then stopped. What could she possibly say? He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes stole her breath. Vulnerable, hopeful, terrified. Every wall he had ever built seemed to crumble in that moment. "I don't want this to end," he said. "I know that sounds crazy. A week ago we were enemies. But these past few days with you have been the best days I've had in years." Walls coming down. Priya reached up and touched his face, feeling the stubble that had grown over their days together. He leaned into her touch, closing his eyes like her hand was something precious. "I spent so long telling myself I hated you," she whispered. "It was easier than admitting I was attracted to you from the very beginning. That night at the awards ceremony, I was devastated because your opinion mattered to me. Because you mattered." Daniel opened his eyes. "I was cruel because I was intimidated. Your work was so brilliant, and I was already feeling like a failure. Tearing you down made me feel powerful. I've regretted it every day since. So where do we go from here? A promise for tomorrow." He took her hands in his, holding them gently like they might break. "I have a proposal." "Not that kind," he added quickly when her eyes widened, "not yet anyway." Priya laughed despite the tears building in her eyes. "What kind of proposal?" "Come back to London with me tomorrow. Let me take you to dinner somewhere without snow and firelight and forced proximity. Let me show you who I can be when I'm not the worst version of myself. Let me prove that this is real." "And if it is?" "Real, I mean?" Daniel smiled, and this time there was nothing arrogant about it. Only hope and tenderness and something that looked terribly like love. Then we build something together. Something neither of us expected to find. A beginning, not an end. The next morning, a farmer on a tractor cleared the road to the cottage. The outside world came rushing back with cell signals and work emails and the thousand complications of normal life. But when Daniel loaded their bags into the rental car, he paused to look at the cottage one last time. Priya stood beside him, and he took her hand without hesitation. "Ready?" he asked. She squeezed his fingers. "Ready." They drove down the mountain together, leaving behind the place where enemies had become something infinitely more. The snow would melt eventually, the roads would clear completely, spring would come to the Scottish Highlands. But what had grown between them in that small stone cottage was just beginning. Some storms, it turned out, brought exactly what you never knew you needed. Some enemies were really just loves waiting to be discovered. And some arrogant smiles, Priya thought as she watched Daniel navigate the winding road, eventually became the smile you wanted to see every morning for the rest of your life.